have done a fabulous job to improve the school, but that's been despite the death sentence hanging over the school for the last 3 years or so. Longton High had a proud history. Council bully boys have seen an end to that. Trentham High is the second best performing school in Stoke-on-Trent and the best non-faith school. The head teacher, Sue Chesterton, was actually brought in by the local authority to bring the school out of special measures. And the results she has achieved speak volumes about how effectively she's done that. And how is she, her team and the pupils rewarded? Well, the school serving the Trentham and Hanford communities is to close. How pathetic. Because of schools like Trentham and Longton High, Stoke-on-Trent is now in the top 20 most improved school authorities. Now, my right honourable friend, the Minister, will know that there have already been demonstrations, a walk to Westminster and numerous fundraising activities to fight these madcap ideas. The Minister asked me in his letter dated 23rd of October if I will now support Stoke-on-Trent Authority with their plans for reshaping their schools under BSF. I have to say to my right honourable friend, no. These are not the authority's schools, they are the parents' and pupils' schools. They are future generation schools, and I will only support plans which are in the best interests of current and future generations, not plans that serve the convenience of Serco or council officers. I facilitated an alternative proposal for Stoke-on-Trent schools, a plan drawn up by teachers and parents based on educational needs, not mathematical simplicity. I did what Serco and the council should have done, but in their ignorance failed to do. I'm not an education expert, but as a local MP, my role is to pick up the pieces when people are let down by those paid to serve them. Those proposals could have formed the basis of a more sensible way of improving education in my city. The alternative was dismissed out of hand. I then had copious meetings to find compromises that would find a way through. But of course, Serco and the council were never interested in anything other than their innovative, bulldozing schools for the future. Indeed, Mrs Anderson, I've got with me a copy of what is a glossy booklet produced by the City Council called Our Vision for a Learning City. Fascinating reading this. In the introduction, it says, this is not a short-term vision. Well, I'd agree with that. But one that has been developed by councillors and officers within the local authority who have been working over the past 5 years with a wide range of stakeholders. I don't know if the Trade Descriptions Act applies to a document like this, but if it does, then it will be kicked out. It then goes under key principles. It says, our aim is to create a family of schools, talks about travel to learn partnership, and it talks, amazingly, about placing the school at the heart of the community. If that were true, and sadly it isn't, then why not have a range of smaller schools, or indeed have a school that's spread over several sites? I do indeed give way.
I'm grateful to my Lord for giving way on that point. He's referred to this Park Hall site. That is in no community whatsoever. It is poised between his constituency and mine. It is a gasometer site and has no population around it whatsoever. I mean, it's completely the opposite and the antithesis of a community school. My honourable friend's critique of the local authority in Serco, I think, has been so devastating that anybody listening might feel that it was overstated. Can I just put on record, Ms Anderson, that I share every single one of his reservations and criticisms. I think he's put a very intelligent and comprehensive case, and it will damage, the plans as they are at the moment, will damage both communities and education in his constituency and mine in a devastating way.
Mr. Rob Flello.
I'm most grateful to my honourable friend for those words, and I couldn't agree more. Moving on to the other pages of this so-called document, I can think of better uses for it. It also talks about the transfer to new schools and academies will be carefully planned and properly managed. We will work closely with school staff and their unions. Well, Mrs Anderson, so far I've seen no evidence whatsoever of that happening at all. In fact, quite the opposite. I've seen an abandonment of places like Longton High just to get on with things. It goes on, ensuring that young people's access to learning is not limited by the length of a school day or access to facilities. Now, there's a further joke in this supposedly serious document. It says the new schools and academies will be located on sites to serve communities throughout the city, with safe and accessible routes and at reasonable travel distances. Well, quite how Park Hall site, or indeed the site at the bottom of an industrial site, can be considered to be safe and accessible just beggars belief. It then goes on about parent choice. The document increasing diversity of provision to meet parental choice. What parental choice? How can there be parental choice when the popular, well-performing, one of the best schools in the city is closing and one of the most improved schools is performing? I fail to see where parental choice comes into that. Mrs Anderson, the Trent and Parents Action Group are now pursuing the excellent idea of forming their school into a cooperative school. After all, and I quote again, engaging parents is of course important, and it was this government which helped set up the first parent-promoted school last year, and will now fund 100 cooperative trust schools. Not my words, Mrs Anderson, those of my right honourable friend, the Minister, in his article in the Times Educational Supplement on the 24th of October. So, my right honourable friend, the Minister, the time for warm words is over. The game of ping-pong is over. No longer can the Council say their hands are tied as government are dictating the number of schools, and no longer can the Minister say it's all in the hands of the local authority. We now have a newly appointed, very excellent and capable acting Chief Executive Officer at the Council, who I hope will see the sense in our proposals. So in conclusion, Mrs Anderson, I ask my right honourable friend this. If the Council propose allowing Trentham to become a cooperative, parent-promoted school, will he allow them to do so? And if proposals come forward for a school to serve Longton, Mere North and Western Coyney, will he allow it? A simple yes will suffice.
Thank you very much, Mrs Anderson. I thank my honourable friend for raising this important debate, important particularly for his own constituents in Stoke-on-Trent, and that of my other honourable friend, the member for Stoke-on-Trent Central. They both have, and my honourable friend in particular has been extremely involved in this issue and in a series of discussions and we've met on a number of occasions, both with the Stoke MPs as a whole and in a series of discussions with my honourable friend. And I've always been grateful for his and their ideas, and I can assure him they've never been dismissed out of hand. And I know, and I think the tenor of what he's just said, that he accepts that we do need to get on with realising the benefits of this substantial investment in education in the city. Nothing could be more important than making sure that every child in every area is able to go to a good school. The landscape of our communities is dramatically changing, with regeneration seeing a transformation in public buildings, services and homes. New health centres are springing up, Sure Start children's centres, libraries and schools, which are at the heart of their communities and are intrinsic to that change. And it's right that they are, because children and young people should also be the focus of our communities and at the centre of everything we do. And building schools for the future is the biggest government investment in school buildings in 5 decades. In September this year, tens of thousands of pupils started term in new buildings or new schools, with the highest number of new or refurbished schools for at least 30 years, and over 20 of those schools were BSF schools across the country. After decades of underinvestment in school buildings, we are saying to children, your learning environment matters, your communities matter, and your future is worth investing in. And we must achieve that in a consistent way for every child. Now, currently in Stoke, education provision is not consistent. While some schools are working well and improving in their pupil attainment, others are not. 7 schools in Stoke-on-Trent are currently achieving below or are in danger of falling below the 30% threshold for GCSE pupils gaining 5 higher level grades, including English and Maths. And falling pupil numbers, and I'll come back to the pupil projection issue in a moment, but falling pupil numbers resulting in surplus places in schools across the city is preventing schools from making the best use of their resources, providing a consistent standard of education across the city, and ultimately driving up standards and pupil attainment. Real change for children and their families sometimes involves radical decisions from local authorities, and we cannot shy away from those decisions. And the visit that I made last month to James Brindley School in the north of the city, where I saw a school where the standard of accommodation, the quality of the buildings, was frankly not good enough for the generation of pupils that are currently there, let alone future generations, convinced me of the urgency of getting on with it in Stoke-on-Trent. I suspended the BSF there some time ago in order to try and see whether or not further discussion and further consultation locally would help to achieve a consensus, but I am convinced now that we do need to get on with it. The Council is proposing to reduce the number of secondary schools from 17 to 13, as we've heard, opening 5 new academies, and new buildings funded by BSF will make schools more accessible to children and their families, although I do understand that there are geographical constraints in the city, just in terms of the way it is, that in some areas make that more difficult than others, and the Council will need to address those. It will see greater strategic direction and leadership through the Academies model, and it will demonstrate real local commitment to the children of Stoke.